What if I told you that the way you've been thinking about intimacy your whole life is actually the reason you're struggling now? Let me share Robert's story. He was 68, happily married for 40 years, but hadn't been close with his wife in over 2 years. One evening, she reached for him, and he froze. His body didn't respond like it used to. He felt broken. She felt rejected. They never talked about it again. I'm Dr. Michael Harrison, and for the past 25 years, I've helped thousands of men over 60 rediscover their confidence and rebuild intimacy in ways they never thought possible. Most men believe their intimate life naturally ends with age, but that's not true. What's really holding them back is what nobody ever taught them about aging and intimacy. Today, I'm going to share 5 life-changing truths that older men wish they had known earlier. These aren't just tips, they're secrets that can transform your confidence, your health, and your relationships. Before we start, if you find this helpful, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You'll get more honest health advice made just for men like you. And if this speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. I want to serve you better. Let's begin with the first truth, the one that quietly breaks more hearts than any other. Secret 1. You can't count on things just happening anymore. Here's what nobody tells you. After 60, the rules change completely. When you were younger, intimacy could happen anywhere, anytime. You didn't need to think about it. Your body was ready when you were. There was pride in being ready on demand. But clinging to that old way of thinking is not just unrealistic, it's dangerous. I see it all the time. Men walk into my office with their heads down. They're not sick, but they're crushed emotionally. They tried to be intimate, but their body didn't cooperate. Instead of understanding what happened, they blamed themselves. They felt weak and ashamed. Let me tell you about Frank. He was 71, healthy, and had started dating someone new after being alone for years. Things were going well until one night when they got close. He hadn't prepared. He thought everything would just work like always. When it didn't, he panicked. He made an excuse and never called her again. He told me later, I felt like I lost part of who I was that night. This is the price men pay when they don't understand how aging changes intimacy. It's not just one bad night. It hits your identity, your confidence, your whole sense of self. But here's what I need you to understand. Losing that automatic response is not the same as losing intimacy. What worked at 30 was about biology. What works at 60, 70, or 80 must be about planning, talking, and preparing. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Planning doesn't kill the magic, it protects it. It gives your body time to get ready. It reduces stress. It creates the right mood. Most importantly, it takes the pressure off. When you stop expecting your body to work like it did decades ago, you can find peace and pleasure in the whole experience, not just the performance. But ignoring this truth has serious risks. I'm not just talking about hurt feelings. I'm talking about men who have had heart attacks or strokes because they pushed their bodies too hard, too fast, without preparation. I've counseled widows who lost their husbands during intimacy because the men were too proud to admit they needed to slow down. I've seen men end up in the emergency room because they mixed their blood pressure pills with other medications without asking a doctor first. The good news is this. Once you understand that intimacy in later life needs a different approach, everything changes. Communication gets better, worry goes away, satisfaction comes back, and you reclaim your confidence not as the man you were at 30, but as the wiser man you are now.
Secret 2. Your body is trying to tell you something important. If you're over 60 and you've noticed changes in your ability to get or keep an erection, you should pay attention. Not just because of what it means for your love life, but because of what it could mean for your heart. Too many men think this is just a bedroom problem, something embarrassing to ignore or joke about. But what they don't know is that a man's erection is actually about blood flow. It's one of the best early warning signs for heart problems in your whole body. Let me tell you about Tom. He was 65, married, still working, staying active, He came to see me because things weren't quite the same in the bedroom. "Probably just getting older, right, Doc?" he said with a laugh. But I didn't laugh. I asked more questions and ran some tests. Something didn't feel right, so I sent him for heart tests. 3 weeks later, Tom was having surgery for an 85% blockage in a major heart artery. That night, he called me from the hospital. I thought I had a bedroom problem. Turns out I had a time bomb in my chest. Here's what most men don't know. The blood vessels down there are smaller than the ones going to your heart, so they get blocked first. If blood can't flow there, it's often the first sign that your bigger arteries, especially the ones feeding your heart and brain, might already be in trouble. Problems with erections are often the very first sign of heart disease. It's your body's quiet way of asking for help. The cost of ignoring this signal can be deadly. I've seen men brush it off, buy pills from the store, or blame it on stress. Meanwhile, they're walking around with dangerous blood pressure, blocked arteries, or diabetes they don't know about. They don't find out until it's too late, until a stroke hits or a heart attack happens during sleep. But here's the good news. You have more control than you think. If you treat this like a warning signal instead of something shameful, you can catch problems early. You can make changes that not only help your love life, but could save your life. If something changes in your ability to perform, don't hide it. Don't ignore it. Don't be embarrassed. Be smart. Get your heart checked. Have the tests done. One awkward doctor visit today could mean 10 more healthy years with your family. This isn't about shame. It's about staying alive. Secret 3. Intimacy is medicine for your heart and mind. Think back to a time when you felt truly connected to someone, not just physically, but emotionally, when their touch made you feel understood and alive. For many men, those moments become rare as we get older. But intimacy after 60 isn't just about your body. It's about your heart, your mind, your whole spirit. And when that emotional connection disappears, the cost is much greater than just missing out on pleasure. I've sat with men in their 70s, strong men who built businesses and raised families, yet their voices shook when they said, "I haven't felt close to anyone in years." They weren't just missing physical intimacy. They were starving for closeness, for human warmth, for someone to touch their hand and really mean it. Let me tell you about George. He was 72 when he came to see me. His wife had passed away 4 years earlier. Since then, he'd kept to himself, convinced that closeness no longer belonged in his life. "What's the point at this age?" he asked. But I could see it in his eyes. He missed the connection, the laughter, the touch. Over time, that emotional distance had turned into sadness, sleepless nights, and high blood pressure that no medicine seemed to help. What George didn't know, and what most older men never hear, is that intimacy is actually medicine. Physical closeness releases chemicals in your brain that aren't just about feeling good. They control your mood, reduce stress, help you sleep better, boost your immune system, and lower your risk of heart disease. When you lose intimacy, you lose a powerful part of staying healthy. Yet so many men push it away. They tell themselves that connection is for young people, that meeting someone is weakness, that being vulnerable is something to hide. So instead of reaching out, they shut down. They avoid physical closeness even when it's offered. They go quiet. But here's what that silence costs: higher risk of depression, more stress hormones, weaker immune system, higher blood pressure, and often brain decline from being emotionally isolated for too long. I've seen men age 10 years in half the time simply because they had no one to hold, no one to talk to at night, no one to share their life with. They lived long enough to survive, but not well enough to feel truly alive. This isn't just about being in a relationship. Some married men haven't truly connected with their spouse in years. Others live alone but have rich emotional lives through friendship and self-acceptance. The point is, emotional intimacy is just as important as physical health. Without it, you're running on empty. If you've been feeling disconnected, if you've lost interest in touch, if you've told yourself that affection doesn't matter anymore, you may be slowly starving emotionally, and it's costing you more than you realize. But it's not too late. Reaching for connection, even if it feels scary, is one of the most powerful health choices you can make. Whether it's through honest talk with your spouse, allowing yourself to feel during moments of touch, or simply admitting your need for closeness, it starts with one act of courage. Secret 4. What you watch in private is rewiring your brain. There's something most men never talk about, but many experience. It's what they turn to when they're lonely, curious, or trying to feel something again. It's fast, private, and easy. I'm talking about adult videos online. And while it might seem harmless, it's one of the most powerful destroyers of male confidence I've ever seen. In my 25 years of helping men, I've seen a heartbreaking pattern. As physical changes start, slower response, longer recovery time, occasional problems, men quietly retreat into fantasy online. They stop trying with their partners. They stop asking for affection. Instead, they sit alone with a screen, thinking it's normal, even necessary. But what they don't realize is that what they're watching is changing how they think, feel, and what they expect from themselves and their partners. I remember Carl. He was 69, retired, proud, but something had changed. He told me he hadn't touched his wife in almost 3 years. He said they just grew apart, but the truth came out slowly. Carl had gotten into watching adult content almost every day. What started as occasional escape became a replacement for real intimacy. Over time, he began comparing what he saw on screen to what he experienced at home. His wife's body, her pace, her responses, they no longer excited him. He grew bored, then resentful, then silent. Eventually, she stopped reaching for him at all. This is the quiet cost of online adult content at an older age. It's not just what you see, it's what you stop feeling. Your brain gets used to artificial excitement, perfect bodies, endless variety with no emotion, no imperfection. Soon, reality doesn't measure up. That warm, imperfect human connection you once treasured starts to feel dull, even annoying. Your body follows. Brain pathways begin to change. It becomes harder to get excited by touch alone. Some men find they can't finish without a screen in front of them. Others report delayed response, problems with erections, or loss of interest altogether. And perhaps most damaging is what happens inside, the quiet wearing away of confidence, connection, and self-worth. Because no matter how much you watch, you're still left with that empty feeling afterward. That quiet moment where you wonder why you don't feel satisfied. You start to think you've changed, that maybe it's just age. But deep down, you know it's not age. It's that you've been feeding your brain something fake for so long, it's forgotten how to respond to what's real. And that's scary. I've seen marriages fall apart, not because of cheating or illness, but because of years of digital disconnection. I've seen men grow distant from their own bodies, no longer trusting themselves to be present without artificial stimulation. But you're not alone, and there is a way back. It starts with understanding that what you watch, especially alone, doesn't just affect your physical response. It rewires your expectations. It teaches your mind to demand constant newness, instant excitement, and zero emotional effort. But real intimacy is none of those things. Real intimacy is patient, it's messy, it's emotional, it's built on trust, conversation, and being present. And yes, it may feel slower than instant online gratification, but it's deeper, more lasting, and far more fulfilling. Letting go of online adult content, especially if it's been a habit for years, isn't easy. It takes honesty, support, and sometimes professional help. But what's waiting on the other side is worth it. Renewed sense of self, deeper bond with your partner, return to natural excitement that doesn't leave you empty, and most importantly, confidence that isn't tied to performance or fantasy, but to presence and real connection. Secret 5. The most dangerous time is when you try to prove yourself. There's a moment that sneaks up on many older men, a moment when they feel bold, energized, even young again. Maybe it's after a good doctor visit, or when someone says, "You've still got it." Maybe it's when someone new stirs feelings that haven't been awake in years. And in that moment, something dangerous happens. They feel the need to prove it, to themselves, to their partner, or maybe just to time itself. They want to show they've still got what it takes. They want to be intimate like they were at 30. No planning, no pacing, no limits. And that's when real damage can happen. I've seen it over and over. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who push themselves too far, too fast, all because of pride. They drink too much wine, skip their heart medicine, take store-bought pills, and approach intimacy like it's a performance. But inside, their heart is working overtime. Their blood pressure is rising, their breathing is shallow, and their body, which needed care and preparation, is being forced into something it's not ready for. One man I'll never forget was Richard, 72. He was charming, funny, and had recently started seeing someone new. He came to me once and joked, "Doc, I've got to keep up." I warned him, told him his heart wasn't as strong as before, that intimacy is exercise, not just pleasure. He nodded, smiled, and said, "Don't worry, I know my limits." 2 weeks later, Richard collapsed, heart attack. His friend called for help, but by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. His body couldn't handle the strain of that night. Not because he wasn't a man, but because he forgot that aging requires respect, not resistance. When older men try to prove they're still young without caution, the price can be fatal. Intimacy, especially in later life, is a full-body event. Your heart rate goes up, your blood vessels expand, your breathing gets deeper. It's like climbing a hill physically. And if your heart isn't prepared, if your body is under strain, that hill becomes a cliff. I've spoken to widows who said their husbands died doing what they loved. But behind the smiles is much deeper pain, because those deaths weren't peaceful. They were preventable. The mistake isn't in wanting intimacy, it's ignoring your body's needs. It's letting your ego speak louder than your wisdom. It's treating your partner like an audience instead of a companion. When intimacy becomes a performance instead of shared connection, it stops being love and starts being a risk. The fear that you're no longer desirable, no longer strong, no longer capable, can push you into choices that cost far more than your pride. But here's the truth. You don't need to prove anything. You've lived, loved, and survived more than most. Your worth isn't measured by how hard or fast or long. It's measured by presence, honesty, and the ability to listen to your partner and your own body. Slowing down isn't giving up, it's staying alive. Taking your time isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The most powerful thing a man can do in his later years is not fight aging, but embrace it with strength, clarity, and care. If you feel the urge to prove yourself, take a breath. Ask yourself why. Ask if it's about connection or control, about love or fear. Because in that moment, what you choose matters. You can choose pressure and suffer the consequences. Or you can choose presence and create something far more lasting than any performance. What this all means for you. Now you know the 5 truths that many older men wish they had learned sooner. These aren't just tips, they're turning points. Quiet moments of wisdom that separate men who age with strength, love, and energy from those who slowly disconnect from their partners, their health, and themselves. The hardest part of aging isn't physical decline. It's the emotional cost of feeling invisible, uncertain, or afraid to speak up. Too many men think they're alone in their struggle. They believe what they're going through is embarrassing or their fault. But your body isn't betraying you. It's just changing. And like any change in life, it requires understanding, not shame. Let's remember what we've learned. First, spontaneity. The lie that intimacy should just happen like it did at 25. After 60, that thinking sets you up for failure and sometimes danger. Planning isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Second, your physical response is a window to your heart health. If blood isn't flowing where it used to, it may not be flowing to your heart or brain either. That warning could save your life if you listen. Third, intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional medicine. It heals, grounds, and connects. When men cut themselves off from that emotional layer, they begin to wither not because they're old, but because they're alone in a way that breaks the spirit. Fourth, online adult content and the distortion of real connection. It starts quietly as a substitute, but over time rewires how you feel, love, and see yourself. It can rob you of your ability to be present and real. Finally, the most dangerous moment isn't when you feel weak. It's when you try to prove you're still young, pushing your body past its limits for ego's sake. That choice has cost men their health, relationships, and lives. Maybe you saw yourself in these stories. Maybe you've been struggling in silence, too ashamed or afraid to speak up. Maybe you've been telling yourself these changes are just how things go, and there's nothing you can do. But that's wrong. Knowing these truths puts you in a new position, not just to understand your body and intimacy, but to take back control, to reconnect, rebuild, and rewrite what these years look like. You don't need to settle for silence. You don't need to disappear into the background of your own story. You're still here. Your presence, your heart, your intimacy, they still matter. In fact, they may matter now more than ever. So here's what I'll leave you with. If anything you've heard today stirred something in you, if it made you think, made you uncomfortable, or gave you hope, don't walk away unchanged. Talk to your partner. Talk to your doctor. Make that appointment. Start that conversation. And most of all, stop believing the lie that this part of your life is behind you. It isn't. There's still so much more waiting. More connection, more pleasure, more healing, more love. But it starts with a choice. The choice to stop just surviving and start really living again. If you're still listening, still open, thank you. The men who change their lives are the ones who first find the courage to listen. You've just taken the first step. Now take the next one. If this message spoke to you, if even one part made you pause or feel understood, I'd be honored if you'd let me know. Type 1 in the comments so I know you're here, still listening, still choosing to grow. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap that bell. I share honest, real conversations like this just for men like you. Because you deserve more than silence. You deserve the truth and the tools to live your best years with strength, wisdom, and heart. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning a new chapter. And that chapter can be filled with more connection, confidence, and joy than you ever imagined possible.